everyone that's here so far. We have a lot to cover. I've been working with Yasutomo for about over 30 years, and I've kind of been, before that, I was in the art supply industry. I still, I've always been. So I have a lot of experience with different art supplies. And one thing I really was attracted to, and the reason I started working for Yasutomo was I like the Asian art supplies. I like the Japanese papers, especially the papers, and we're going to do a lot with that. I like the quality of the materials, and I even though I'm not really a traditional Japanese artist, I don't do the traditional Japanese arts, but I have incorporated them into my practice, into my art. So I'm going to turn my table. We've got lots to do, and I want to just it's kind of chaotic on my table, so because yeah, there's so many supplies to cover. So I wanted to kind of talk about the papers and the supplies I'm going to use, and then I'm going to just show you some pretties or some, hopefully some things that will inspire you. But I'm also going to talk about my process. So what seems like chaotic creating, that means painting and printing and mark making, it all kind of comes into, it sort of comes together. So kind of like this chaos, and then it just falls together where it may. And that's kind of what makes this kind of creating really fun, really not intimidating. You do bits and pieces at a time, and then you take those bits and pieces and turn them into something that you will enjoy making. So I kind of will talk about those things. Like, for instance, I like working small only because I have a small space to work in. I don't have massive walls to put my art on. So I'm now doing things small. In fact, so small, even like these things, small artist trading cards, which are great for sharing. And I like to share art because I can't keep it all, right? I mean, we like to create, but what do we do with it? So that's kind of I like to share it. So we have some supplies that are traditionally Japanese, but are so much fun to incorporate into your collage and mixed media practice. And I'm going to go over those first, and then I'm going to start some fun things. So I'm going to talk about the papers, and this is the papers that I use a lot of. And then there's a lot of them, and I'm going to make sure that you have a little understanding of why there's so many. And I want us to get into the creating part, but I'll go over these real quick. So a wonderful substrate for creating are the Shikishi boards, and I know that Opus carries them now. I love these little small, little tiny ones, 3-inch squares or a little under 3-inch. And these are 5x7. And so we pick the sizes so that you can, work small. You can also send them in the mail. You could share them and you can frame them. They're just really fantastic. And they're acid-free substrates that have different types of washi paper mounted on them. And that's where I'm going to go into those. But these are just a little great creative substrate, and you have these beautiful little foil edges, and I just think it's great. I like to work on both sides. I'll show you some examples of artwork I've done on that, and if I have time, I'll show you some of the things. Maybe I can show you a demo of that. But the first paper that I want to bring up is the 6H sketch paper. It's like been around for many years, and it's a very nice, heavy, fairly heavyweight washi paper that is considered a practice paper, but it is really handy for mixed media mark making, and it's reasonably priced. I like to use this for my gel printing. Actually, it's a fantastic gel printing paper, and I'll show you some examples with that, with gel printing. Then we'll get into, there's another one, and I forgot, I don't have the label because I tore the label off, but it's called 6JM, and it's a thinner paper. And the same idea, it's a little thinner though, more translucent, and it's larger. And you can do what I mentioned before on this. It's just a great paper to use. And then I'm going to get into the papers that are like, wow, fine art papers from Japan. There's so many different ones. So you've got, these are all Opus has all these different names. You've got Kozo, Mashi, Gazen, Usagami, Torinoko. These are all premium paper from Japan. And my favorite one I've sort of become it's sort of become my favorite only because I've been doing some crazy things with it lately, is the Kozo. It is 100% Kozo mulberry fiber, and it's really strong. It's so durable and so strong. I was able to actually make sewn. I did momigami, which is like a wrinkled kneaded paper technique, and I was able to make a fabric out of it. So this is a gel printed piece of paper. It's gel printed Kozo, and I just did some momigami and I sewed it and it works. It's like fabric. And then I also did these little, I just want to show you these real quick, momigami little flowers that were done with this kozo, and it just really is, it feels fabric-like, and it's just so neat. And in Japan, sewing fabric they've been sewing fabric clothing for many, a long time. And this is the paper that is the top for that kind of, painting and creating. So there are other ones, like there's a hemp paper, the mashi. It's a hemp paper, unsized. This paper is great for watercolor, ink painting, mixed media, everything, but it's unsized. So the paints are going to sink in, they're going to absorb. And that's a good thing in most like sumi A or Chinese painting. You want a paper that's going to absorb the paint or absorb the watercolor, because it kind of goes into the fibers. And then when you mount it or you rework it, the paint is not going to bleed. It stays right where it's supposed to. Then there's this paper. I love this paper, the Gazan paper. It's lightly sized, so it's got some resistance to the water. And you can draw on this. You can do all kinds of printmaking, calligraphy, watercolor as well. And Torinoko, I'm going to bring this one up because this one is very sized. It says lightly sized, but this really behaves like a watercolor paper. I've got samples. I'm going to just show you some stuff with it. It has a sizing, and it has this, it basically kind of floats, the watercolor floats on top, the ink floats on top. It doesn't soak through. So it's a different kind of experience when you're creating on it. Then there's also Usagami. This is a tissue, a wet strength tissue. It is fabulous for doing collage. And this is, I wanted to I'll share with you the things you can do with this. You can print on this actually. And that's why it's 8.5 by 11, because you can put this through a laser printer. In fact, and if I'm going too fast, please, if you have questions, just, slow me down and say, hey, Karen, what was that? I'm open for any questions, or if you want to see a technique done that I didn't cover, let me know, or let in the chat, and then we'll hope to accommodate you. So I'm going to just put these down because I want you to see kind of them in action. But these are the papers that we're going to be talking about or using today. And then I'm going to be kind of going over some of the basic inks that Yasutomo carries. There's two different inks. Actually, I'm going to show you these inks. This is the Chinese gold and the Chinese in the silver. They're black ink with gold mica flakes and black ink with silver. So it's not pure silver, but it's stunning on the papers. And I'll show you, I'll do some fun mark making with that. And this is our F series, and the KF series is slightly different formula than the KY. The KY series is just pure carbon and nothing else in it. The KF has a little PVA, just a little bit to make it more water resistant. That's it. But they're both wonderful inks, and we'll be using those today. I also have a little nori paste, and I'm going to talk about our silver point tool because I'm now obsessed with the silver point tool. And it's mentioned in the supply list, the silver point drawing ground. We have mineral paper that actually you can do silver point on without prepping it, and I'll show you that. But this stuff is like my favorite. I've tried other silver point grounds, and I'm just talking about golden because I'm a fan of golden acrylics anyway, but they made a really nice primer for drawing media and the silver point tool, which Yasutomo we have. It's just fantastic. It's a nice mark making thing. I'll show you what I do with that. And there are traditional ways to use it, but I don't do traditional. So, but I'm going to just show you, like for the washi papers, how much fun and how I kind of organize my washi paper stash. Because after a while, when you've been creating a while, you're gonna find, you're gonna be amassing sort of piles and piles of papers, right? And you probably wonder, what does she do with this? How do you do this? And I'm gonna show you just kind of how I organize it so that, maybe when you're creating, you can kind of get some inspiration on that. So I wanted to mention, I'm gonna just pull from these piles because this pile is some different papers. This is the Asagami and the Torinoko papers. These have been printed in a laser printer. So all of the papers that I've shown you will go through a laser printer. I can't guarantee the effect, how it would work on a inkjet printer. But I'll tell you some little tricks on putting the thinner papers through a laser printer, if you have a laser printer. And I think it would also work on an inkjet printer, but I can't really verify that because I don't have one. But a lot of times I take my large sheet of 6JM, which I'm going to do right now. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to make that an underpaper. And I'm going to mention what underpaper is for me. Underpaper is not something I throw away. I actually put it on my table, and that's going to be some mixed media art when it's all done. Because I'm going to be using, whatever whatever I'm using in painting, if it shows up on this, I can use that later on as as a mixed media piece, as a little collage piece. So I don't like to waste inks and paints, so I usually put a piece of something like this under my surface. And I'll work on that later, but I just wanted to share, I'll go through the papers. So printed, this is an underpaper, that's why I mentioned that. This is something that I had underneath some things I was working on, and then I just started rolling paint on it and then marking it. And I have this nice sheet now that I can use for something, whether it be a collage or, it'd be something, a book cover. A lot of times, just so for the larger sheets that I kind of have I don't know, I have like an attachment to, if that makes sense. I will cover a book, like I just covered this watercolor journal I just made with some gel printed washi paper. I also covered this one with some gel printed washi paper. And what's great about, if you're doing making, the washi paper is so strong and it's so flexible that it really makes a nice book. It makes great material for good book covers. This is also a piece of the 6 jam that I had done some stenciling and some crayons over. This is the underpaper on another project, so I loved it using a brayer, and I just was offing, when I was brayering, I offed the color onto the underpaper, and I get this great collage paper. So the underpaper I'm using, I just read, it's a 6JM. That's what I'm using. But any of the washi papers, if you have a 6H or any of the other ones, why not use those? If you have a piece that you maybe didn't like, if you were practicing something, just put it on your surface and keep working on it until you get layers. You'll find that you'll fall in love with it later. So these are all just some papers that were kind of mixed media, underpaper kind of things. And then this is the pile I have of what is called, it's called orizagami, or shibori is the fabric term for fabric. But this is shibori or orizagami, correctly stated. And this is basically a fold. You fold the paper and you dip it in either ink, or you can thin watercolor or thinned out acrylics. And I just love this stuff for collage. And I save my stuff, I save a stash. I use it for various things, for origami, for paper. Actually, I'll show you this one. I just made this little folded piece using one of those. I mean, so there's really a lot of reasons that you want to save all these bits, all these piles, right? And I like to organize them in some, so I know where they are. And I usually put these in a little folder, and I know where they are. Another thing that I really don't have a lot of samples of because I used them, but you can use the papers in caustic. So if you have encaustic, if you're an encaustic artist and you want to play with it, with the wax, this is great paper for using with encaustic. And these were just some simple samples I did. And these are with crayons, with our artist crayons, I think. and it's made it very transparent. It's actually really translucent and it becomes really strong. And if you can fold these, you can use these in collage. And it's just really fun. Another thing you can use these washi papers for is for gyotaku, which is basically the fish printing, as we call it, right? This is just I used a rubber or silicone mold for these, but you can take impressions and do, printmaking is fabulous, rubbings, things like that. So I've got these for papers that I'll probably use in a collage later on. Here's a little fish print. But, these make this kind of paper just makes fabulous. It's a great service. If you can see, look how detailed that leaf is, because that's a nice. I think this one is 6 JM. That big pad we just mentioned. It's pretty much it's a great pad. Another thing you can use, and I'm going to show you some of that, is the mark making on the washi paper. So this is I think this is the Asagami or Torinoko, and it took the ink very well without bleeding. It doesn't bleed through. So you can try different techniques. This is a more absorbent paper, which I love because it gives you that other side. This is 6JM, no, 6H, I'm sorry. 6H is a smaller pad. This is just doing some mindful mark making, which is just very meditative, very calming. And I made some marks with the silver ink that I will use in a collage sometime down the road. This one is some leaves I did on the Usami paper with ink, and look how it does it on both sides. So I could use either side. In fact, I don't know which side is the ink side, actually. There it is. I'm going to be able to use this in collage, and I've got examples of these being used. And this was a demo I did, just making brush marks on the Usagami, and it's both sides are usable. And I'm going to be doing some doodling over that. So all this, I saved these little practices. This is also on the Usagami. I save these, and then I start to build layers. And this is another piece here with the silver Chinese ink and with some black, just making dots, but really simple marks. Here's another one with gold, just simple practices. And these kind of practices are really nice to do, especially before you're doing an art session. You just want to loosen up a little, or you want to practice leaves or practice strokes, so that when you go on your bigger piece, you can feel very comfortable and loose. So those are those kind of marks. And then the last but not least, my favorite is to do gel printing. I love jelly printing. It's like finger painting for adults. And this kind of paper is incredible for that. You can do, this was a gel printed piece of, I believe, Gossin. And what I did is I did the gel print with gold, turned it over and painted the other side, and it came through. It soaked through and it did the blue on this side. So that's what is so wonderful about washi paper, because you've got all these different things you can do with it. Here's a piece that I haven't painted on the other side yet, but this is just a silver. I just love this piece. In fact, I'm probably too attached to it. I need to cut it up and use it. That's my problem, is I start getting attached to a piece of paper and I need to use it. But these are all double-sided, done in the technique where you do the gel printing and then you just paint on the other side and you get this fabulous double-sided paper. And these are just some same thing painted on the other side, but you can just see how luscious these papers are. These are all either with stencils and gel prints and jelly plate. These are all my gel printed precious ones I haven't torn up yet, and I need to, but maybe I'll do that today. So these, just to let you know, I just save I kind of hoard my papers for a while. And then I start to take pieces, I'll take a piece and cut some off and use it in a collage. So now I want to just kind of get started on some paper, a little bit of mark making, so that you can have, we can get a little experience here. I'm going to show you really while I'm at it. Oh, I'll make this last. Okay. So I'm going to show you some of the mark making that we can do on these different papers. And I'm going to put another piece because I noticed this is a really thin under paper. So I may just do another. I'm going to put my pad kind of under it a little bit more, even just in case. Here, I'll put this underneath. So when I'm working, I don't want to just, I want to make use of every ink that kind of, all the ink that soaks through. I'll find a use for it.
Karen,
So, yes,
may I jump in and just I have a small request for you. Uh,
yes.
when you're mentioning the papers, could you just show us really quickly when you mentioned the different type of paper, just what that looks like in its package?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes. Thank you for, that's a good suggestion.
yeah.
Good. All right. So I've got the papers here and I'm gonna go by, well, I don't have the package for the 6 jam. That's the only one because I do, but the cover's off. So apologize for that. But as I go through, yes, I'll show you each one. So I'll start with 6H, a little bit of mark making, and I'm going to show you the 6H pad. And it is our sort of been around forever and ever. This is 6H, comes with 48 sheets, 9 by 12. I usually cut them in half if I'm doing some, I find that since I work small, but if you work larger, you can use this. This also makes a great book making paper. If you're making signatures for a stab bound book, this paper is fantastic. And so that I'm going to just do a little bit of mark making with that. Now I'm going to try some brushes. And actually, I'm going to use this brush. I know it's the SW1. I believe it's in the kit. I believe you brought in a kit that has the ink and the little dish. And maybe Phoebe can answer that. It's the Sumi set, the Yasutomo Sumi set. Um, I'm not going to pour with this ink that's the KF2. This ink is fabulous because I like to just dip my brush in it and I don't have to pour it in. Now this, you have to pour these into a dish because it's kind of hard to get a brush into these. I didn't take the lid off of that, but anyway, this you can just directly brush right in and the lid serves as a brush rest, which I think is pretty darn cool because you know how brushes tend to go everywhere. So I'm going to just do some mark making. And with this brush, I think I'd like to suggest is if you have bamboo brushes or Asian brushes, whatever brand you have, um, if you're going to use some for ink and then you decide you want to switch over to watercolor, I always have I keep a second set for my watercolors, for my transparent watercolors or my Western watercolors. And I don't like to have my Sumi inks and the watercolors mixed because once you get the Sumi ink in, it's very difficult to get it all out, 100% out. So you might get a muddy effect if you're going to use it for watercolors. So always keep that separate. Like if just kind of have your ink brushes in a different holder. That's kind of how I do it. And then I'm not going to mix them up. So for mark making, what I like to do is just to practice strokes is I usually just kind of get myself in a comfortable spot, which I am in, and my feet, 2 feet on the floor, shoulders kind of straight. I take a deep breath. It's kind of a meditative experience for me. And I'm just going to take my brush and I'm going to dip it into the ink, and I'm not going to load it up too far. I'm just going to load it up to about halfway. You see, it's kind of like dipping. If you just kind of dip it in. Of course, I've used this ink for a while, so I have to dip a little darker or deeper. And I don't want it dripping off my brush. I'm just going to have it sitting on the brush. And I'm just going to make some strokes. And I think I like to make leaves just to practice leaves. And the wonkier they are, the better. So I like to put my fingers kind of up high because if I go down here, I kind of get tight, right? I kind of get a little, I want things to loosen up. So I'm going to take my hand and I'm just going to bring it up a little higher. And I'm just going to start with a little line, just kind of try to control um, and not controlling it, obviously, which is fine. That's what I want, the wonkiness. And I'm just going to make like a leaf shape. And I'm just, do you want to see how much I can do with one loading of the brush. So it's a little dry, which is kind of fun. I like that. And I'm going to look on the back side and it soaks through just a little bit, but I can do watercolor after this and I'll show you. This is kind of like a origami sort of thing, but now I'm loading it up just a little more just to see. So I've got my brush kind of loaded up to almost the top, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to see if I can get a different kind of look. Now this is very spontaneous. I'm just gonna put the shape down. And I noticed that I can't really get a fine line with this because I've got a kind of a fat brush. So if I want a finer line, I'm going to have to get a thinner brush. This one's the SW1. It goes down to an S, even thinner. And so you can control with this anyway, the 6H. It's going to act differently than the other ones. So if I make a circle, I'm just going to show you a little circle, which I love doing circles, or not, it's not really a circle, but a spherical shape. And I like to do that just to practice kind of that shape, right? Just kind of let like the two to join each other. And you can just do a page of circles and just do that and kind of play with, dipping, and here we go, just like nice little circles. And I can do this while I'm listening to music, which I really love doing, or listening to a podcast. Oops, that's something that scared me. I'm gonna have to turn that down. Sorry. Ooh, didn't have my phone off. Sorry about that. Do you see what happened? Oh, sorry about that. I'm just gonna go ahead and try to do that now. Usually with this ink, you don't want to you just want to be spontaneous in one stroke, trying to fix it. It doesn't work. So I did that with this, but still it's kind of a fun thing. And I'm going to see as I do this, making my little practice strokes on the 6H paper, I'm kind of getting a feel of how this paper responds to ink. And that's kind of why I do that. I'll take a half sheet and I'll just start doing it. Got a little bit of bleed through, not much on there. I'm going to set that aside and I'll come back to that in a moment. I'm going to show you next, I'm going to show you how which one's this one? I'm going to show you the Torinoko. Okay, Torinoko. There, I've got a piece of it. It's this paper. It's 80 GSM. It is lightly sized. It is really, let's see if I can see on the other side. It's 6T, that's the item number. And this one is a totally different experience. I'm going to show you what I mean. So like here I've got my paper and I'm going to do maybe the similar strokes so you can kind of see. I'll make a leaf up here. I'm just going to go and I've got it has a totally different feel. If I hesitate, I can actually have much more control over my line making because it doesn't soak through. It is sized in a way where you can really get, more preciseness. And as you can see, that is way easier because it's not going in the paper. So it's a different experience. You could compare the difference here. Same stroke, same amount of ink, but it's just a different experience. And I really like this. I'm going to probably be using this in collage. I can make little small marks. I can make more leaves. I really love making leaves. It's just so relaxing. And the wonkier they are, the better. So, practicing strokes, like practicing if you wanted to do just lines, like you want to try different lines, you would just get yourself into the mode of just playing with your brush and the ink and just seeing what happens. And try that on any of your papers that you buy. Just take a little slice of it and just play and see what you can, how the ink goes in or on, how you can see. You'll just be able to see and you'll get a feel for it. And then really they're so different. So this one, I don't need to load my brush as much because the ink is not absorbing into the paper. And I love that. So I'm just going to kind of show you different things. I'm making little marks. And these little marks are not a waste of time because I'm going to use these eventually, maybe not today, maybe today. I can use these in a collage, on a part of a collage. And I like to it's nice to make like high contrast papers if you can, like this combination of the dark and the light. I think this is going to be really nice in a collage. So I'm just going to make some of these little marks. And usually, like doodling, if you're on the phone, you can grab some ink and just, or you're listening or watching a program and you don't really care about watching it. You want to just pages like this, and then save those pages, and you can use them in your other creative, your collages. If you're not a collage artist or a person who doesn't know about collage or have not tried it before, what I love about collage as an artist, because many times I do something or I'll paint something and I'll want to throw it away because it's not really visually that exciting to me. For whatever reason, it's not a winner, you know, not every painting is a winner. But if I save it, I can use it. I save it and I use it later. I don't throw it away. So I'll take a little part of a painting or I'll take a little, you know, piece and I'll show you those a little bit later. But that is the Torinoko, and you can see it's floating on top. It doesn't soak through at all. And it's another experience. Thing and Gassen is a really interesting paper. I'm going to show you the package. It is a 20 sheet, you'll get 20 sheets. It's lightly sized. It's great for sumi, watercolor, you know, the traditional uses. But it's kind of fluffy. I call it fluffy because it's a little thicker, and I love it for momigami. To do the wrinkled paper, I get this really fabricy feel with this. For some reason, the fibers are either shorter. I don't know. I don't know the exact reason why it's so cool, but it's really a nice paper. I'm just going to do some ink mark making on it. One thing you should know on all of these washi papers, there's a wrong side and there's a smooth side and a rough side. The Godson is almost hard to tell. I could feel the smoother side, slightly rougher on the other side. Some of them will be more pronounced. You'll really feel the difference. But you always want to create on the smooth side, print on the smooth side, draw on the smooth side. The rough side is really good for when you want to fuse the paper or glue it to a substrate. That's why washi paper is fantastic for collage. Absolutely. It's really the best paper for collage. But let's just see what we do. If I do the same thing in this, I'm going to just do I'm kind of trying to do the same thing, same amount of motion. This absorbs the ink beautifully. It feels really rich. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'm just going to do another one. Get my leaf practice in there, because if I practice every day and see how I left an opening there, it was an accident, but I like that. It's like it's kind of a nice little opening there that I can use. I'll use that for something. I'll do another leaf. This time maybe I'll go in a different direction. But really just practice these little shapes, whatever your favorite shapes are, and then just kind of play. There we go. And I'll do this. Really get your inks out and your papers out. Maybe get a little stack. And then with this ink, because you don't have to pour it in a dish, it's so much easier to kind of clean up and finish up. If you have an ink that you have to pour, then pour it in a dish. But just kind of a convenient way to just practice your ink painting, and you'll get more confident and you'll have lots of fun with it. So the Godsend, as you can see, it absorbs, and it's almost like the ink is blacker than the 6H. I don't know why, but when I compare it, and then when you take the paper, and if you can hear this, okay, 6H has a crisper feel, and if you take the Godsend, it's more of a soft feel. So it doesn't have that crisp, it's just fluffier. I guess that's the word I'm trying to come up with. So I'm going to save these little gems. I'm going to use them later.
And
And I'm
Karen,
going to just talk about the kozo and the mashi. I'm going to do these kozo mashi, and I'm going to show you the usagami, oh yeah, and I wanted to show you the silver point ground. I want to make sure that you see that. Now usagami, did I cut it up? I hope I did. Yeah, let me just grab a piece of that. The usagami is a very transparent tissue paper, but it's wet strength. So let me show you some cool things. I'm going to show you usagami the package. It's a slightly off-white compared to the 6H. It's got a nice warm tone to it. You'll get 30 sheets in this pack. They'll go a long way. I do things like I stamp words on it, I print on it, and I will draw on it. And what I will be able to do is, because it's so transparent, when I'm doing collage, the paper disappears and only the artwork shows. So that's a really cool thing. So I'm going to show you, I'll do a little bit of painting on it, just like I did. Then I'll show you the codes on the mashi. I know I jump around. That's kind of, I get so excited I jump around a lot. So someone's asking about uses for this paper. I'm thinking, oh, for the for the Usagami? Let me
Um,
see.
there's a question about the ink
Yes.
and what makes this ink different from an acrylic ink?
It has acrylic ink has the binder that makes it completely waterproof when dry. Even once it dries, it can't move. Sumi ink does not have a binder like that. This one has a little tiny bit of PVA in it, which is polyvinyl acetate, kind of like glue, white glue, and it makes it a little more water resistant. But with these, you can wash, like I could leave this brush dry and I can wash it out and it will come out. It does dissolve in water. And so, so the acrylic ink is going to be different. Another thing about acrylic ink or acrylic paints, when it dries shiny. It has the polymer medium, so it's going to be kind of a plasticized finish if you paint it thickly. This will have it will have a very sort of matte finish. And definitely you could add polymer medium to this if you wanted to. The carbon in this is just carbon and water, and the PVA, and this one is just carbon and water only. And it's just pure ink in its purest form. There's no additives in the sense that it won't alter the properties or the experience of ink painting. So I like to use acrylic inks when I know when I'm not using washi paper. I use acrylic inks because the washi paper absorbs the inks, by the way. And look, I want to show you this Usagami. This paper is just one of my favorites. I want to do like a little, I feel like just doing a little fun little mark making thing here. And the reason I'm doing this, I'm just kind of gonna maybe gear it up to making a collage with it. Let's see if I do a little like a leaf. I can do a smaller one. Let's see, make a smaller one. You can see how much the brush is the same brush I used for these, but I'm able to get a much finer line. So it's allowing me more control over the lines, and I can also draw, if I wanted to draw with a pen, like a pigmented pen, like a Detail Master or a Micron, you can draw on it too. So this paper, it's see-through, it's so translucent. It's like a tracing paper, and I'll show you. I'm going to do some things with this because I think this would be fun. Just going to do like a little mark making here, and then I'm going to use these for collage on my collages. I'm trying to do small because we're going to do some artist trading cards in about a week or so with Yasutomo. We're doing an artist trading card workshop, or not workshop, but just a demo. And we're going to be using some of these papers. And I like to work small for that reason, for this purpose. But if you want to work larger, by all means, do larger sketches. So here, just making some just kind of intuitive marks. I'm not trying to make anything perfect. Just kind of playing. Let's see, I don't know what that is, but it's something. As you can see how you can make marks on this paper and it soaks through, but it lets you do this very fine line stuff. Let me just show you what I mean on the Usagami. So you can have an image underneath. If let's say you're a little nervous about paint, drawing freehand, you can put images underneath and trace because it does let you draw nice fine lines and it doesn't bleed. It's weird. It soaks through, but it doesn't bleed. So I don't know what the magic is, but I can do like little tiny lines like this, doodly lines, sort of like tangly kind of lines, and it soaked through, but it didn't bleed. So I don't know, magic as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what that is. It's pretty amazing. So that is Usagami, and I can't rave enough about it. So that's why I wanted to pause on that and show you. I'll set that aside. I'll use that in a thing. Now, Kozo, I like for, of course, painting. Large washes of ink. You can do like diluted washes. I'm going to try this again. It is a beautiful paper. It is so responsive. You can see I'm really getting like the line differences. I'll do it again, another little kind of just playing with my lines. Love it, love it. You can, this is so strong. It's great for repair. Let's say you have a old book that you want to, it's falling apart. It's an old antique book. Maybe the pages are kind of getting funky. This is great for repair. It's a very strong. You can use it with either rice paste or washed nori paste, which is great for repair. You can use it with PVA and for with anything. So this is a great paper. It's a more pricey, but it's worth it. You can also do gel printing with it, but I find that because I don't feel a difference in size, I think it's on both sides, very much the same. It's a little more delicate when you're gel printing, and if you're using an acrylic paint, it may lift some of the fibers or tear some of the paper. So I don't use it for that. But that's the only thing I could say is I don't really enjoy Kozo paper for gel printing. Otherwise, I use it for other things. I'm just making a page of leaves. And I could make a page of other things, but for some reason I'm on my leaf kick again. It's just calming to me, very calming. And so whatever shape that you have that is calming to you, that is what you should practice and play with, flowers, leaves. I'm getting not a lot of stuff going on underneath there. And I wanted to share with you the silver point ground and why I love this. I'm going to put this away for a minute. I hate to do that with my water. There we go. I'm just going to clean the brush out at least a little bit, and I'm not going to, I'm going to leave it in there. That's fine. And I'm going to cover that up because I know that once I get collaging, I don't want my ink to be open. It could be scary. It could be real scary. Now this ink, I'm going to show you a little bit. I have to now. So I'm going to put a little bit of this ink and I'll show you this, and then I'll go to the silver point ground. So here I've got the little silver point ground that I've already put onto the paper. I don't know if you see, yeah, yep, you can see it. So the best paper for the image transfer on the gel plate, I believe, is going to be your 6H. I use it all the time for 6H, with 6H. I applied this earlier. I would really think it's better to wait 24 hours when you do a medium like this, but it does work if I do it right away. It's not a problem. But before I do that, I'm going to do just a little mixed media kind of mashup here. I'm going to shake up the traditional Chinese ink. Oh, I'm going to use this one too. And when you do this, when you use this ink, you got to wait. You have to shake until you hear the ball. And I'm going to keep shaking, and it's been a while since I've used this ink. But there's a ball in there. It needs to, and that's not, usually it happens right away, but it's been a while. So, but you shake it until you mix up all the particles. Let's see if this one will come loose. I'm gonna get my exercise. There it is. Hear it? There's a ball. That is ready to go. Okay, that one's gonna take a while. So the ball has now mixed up the mica particles. And when I pour it into my dish, I'm gonna pour just a little bit so I'll have room to, yeah, just a little so I can do the silver. And look, it's all black, right? There's nothing, it's black. But I'm gonna take my brush, I'm gonna rinse out the ink that I have in it. There we go. And I'm just gonna show you how cool it is. So when you're working with it, you can see that gold. You'll see it more as it dries, of course, but I've got some gold going on here. And I'm just going to do a little mark making, like I'm just trying it on the silver point just to see what happens. So it's more gold in this where the silver point ground is not, and it's floating on the silver point ground. And the thing about silver point ground when you're using it on your washi paper, you can put it in random areas so you can see things will kind of do different, it will act differently. So that's the gold. And we're coming out with another gold I'm so excited about, and Phoebe can talk about it later, but we're coming out with another one that's even more flashy than this. Can't wait. There, the silver ball, the little ball is now loose. And I'm gonna go ahead and pour a little bit in here, just a tiny bit, just so I have, oh, you know what? I didn't. So now you know, okay, where did it go? Where's the lid? There it is. So when you first buy this, you do need to take, it's been a while. I think there's a little seal. I'm pretty sure there's a seal in there. You gotta open it up. And if you want to open it that way, oh, my hands aren't working today, guys. Here, I think, oh, it's not working today for some reason, or am I doing it wrong? Oh, well, I'm not gonna open this because Phoebe helped me out there. I don't know why I couldn't do that. Maybe it's never had that happen. Usually I open up, there's a little seal and you take it off and you pour, but maybe that's not the case. Nope. I'm thinking I had a brain freeze or a brain toot, whatever I call that. Yeah, anyway, it's fine. That was just user error. That was artist error. So I'm just going to wipe off the extra ink and I'm going to just show you the silver so you can see it. I'm just going to do a little bit of mark making, nothing fancy. I'm not trying to, I'm just making marks. And I will be able to use these marks for other, like I mentioned, I use it for my collage work. Oh, I just mixed the silver and the gold. But so you can see, and then as it dries, it starts to become more obvious. You can see the gold. It sort of lifts up and then the black kind of outlines. We'll wait for that to dry. All right, so back on. Now I'm going to move that out of the way. And I could fill this whole page with marks, just any kinds of marks. But I wanted to tell you about it, and I'm going to show you this at the end, more at the end. It seems to really be great for the collage. It's meant for drawing. You can just do an entire drawing with it. But the only thing about this, you have to have a ground. So if you don't have it treated, when you're making a mark, it doesn't make a mark. See, it doesn't do it. This is done with a pencil. But if you go over the ground, so here it is, making marks on the silver point ground. So you can kind of play. So you can see I'm making marks only where, and it only shows up where the silver ground was placed. So this is a really fun thing to do. And I'm not doing a traditional drawing because I really want to show you if you're, you don't have to be traditional, you don't have to draw a portrait or anything fancy. You can use this stuff as a great doodling tool. And what happens is when you do layers, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a silver, actually reflects silver. This is silver that it lays down. So the more you layer it, the more silver you will see. And that is just a fantastic another layer to do for collaging. And I'm going to show you an example of that. So I kind of wanted to just quickly demo that, and then I'm going to get to the collage. So I hope I covered the properties of the washi papers and all the exciting things you can do with it. I'm still going to keep this as an under paper for my gluing or collaging. And I'm going to show you kind of a little process that I like to do. This is kind of where all the chaotic stuff comes together and turns into some art. It's kind of like how this is how I do it. Okay. So what you have is, let's say you've done different sessions with whatever you've done mark making. This is with ink. This is gel printed. This is a momigami, which is a wrinkled kneaded paper. This is also momigami, gel printed, shibori. And I've got all these really pretty papers, and I kind of thought I want to do something thematic. I'll put this away until I show you what I mean. Yeah, other stuff here. I want to do a blue themed collage. So my brain just said, get your favorite blue papers. I also took a piece of paper. This is some watercolor paper, and I did paint it ahead of time. I just threw on some acrylic paints, and I did that because I wanted to play with an idea, and I've seen it before. I just think it's a wonderful way to do this. Basically having a colored substrate is really a good way to kind of play with papers and have that underlayment of the color underneath. So I'm going to just take some of these, and I'm going to take a ruler because I want to just tear my pieces instead of trying to tear them like so. I'm going to use a ruler. Okay, so I'm going to just take some pieces and make some small pieces, and I'm just going to go through my little pile of stuff, and I'm going to maybe just tear, maybe 3 of each. So I've got 3 of that, and I'm going to do maybe, here we go. It's a little cut piece. I'll just use that, 3 of that. And it's not like, I'm not trying to be precise. I'm just doing it. I'm having fun tearing up the paper, the precious paper, right? This is the 6JM. Just so you know, I'll tell you what I've got here. This is the 6H. And I'm just gonna put these little scraps aside, so when I start tearing it, I organize my scraps. I don't throw away anything until they become these little tiny minuscule nothings. Then I'll start tossing. This is the momigami. I love this. It feels like fabric and it's gonna have a texture. So I'm gonna go ahead and tear that, tear a piece of that, maybe another piece. Let's do two. All right. That one I'm setting aside. Here's another piece of momigami. I love this. It was gel printed, but I thought it'd be fun since it's colored on both sides. This was the six. Oh boy, this is the Gossen. So he has that fluffy fabric feel. Really, it's just all over the place, right? So this one is just a piece of 6H, and I'm just going to cut it just a couple of pieces. Nothing, I'm not planning anything. Right now, it's just intuitively just doing cuttings, just tearing, getting smaller bits, and we'll see what happens. Maybe two pieces of that. And then I'm gonna grab, I love this paper. This is such a pretty paper. And that was just a big piece of 6H that I had gel printed, but it wasn't my favorite. And then I painted it on the other side and I loved how that came out. And then a tiny little bit of some of this stuff. This is the Shibori, whatever, slash Origami. Okay, there. Now I've got a blue themed thing going on. And there's no plan. I would use nori paste today, but I'm going to use a glue stick. I could show you about nori paste, but what happens with the nori paste if you don't flatten it right after and you don't do like there's a little treatment you need to do. Oh heck, I'm gonna do it. Might as well. This is why I'm here. I want to demonstrate Yasutomo's products, right? So I'm gonna use a flat brush if I can find one. Oh, that's a flat brush. I'm gonna grab another flat brush. It's going to be a new brush we're going to be rolling out next year. Mixed media brush. I'm so excited. I'm going to practice with it. I don't have a lot of nori paste in here. I know I have another jar somewhere. I use it a lot. So the way I do my collaging, this is just a little and a suggestion. You can start laying out your pieces and go, okay, so what makes sense? You can kind of start mapping it out, right? I'm going to keep it small, sort of small on the small side because I'm going to cut this down into 4 sections. So I'm just going to go ahead and start gluing my pieces down. What I like about nori paste, if you want to mix it, which I often do, I'm going to grab a little PVA and I like to kind of mix them up. This is terrible, but I'm going to mix some of this PVA in with the nori because nori paste actually is slow drying and repositionable while it's still wet. And the PVA is a little stronger bond. So I like to actually combine the two. Now, I've never done this on camera before. Phoebe, I apologize. But I'm actually going to, since I have just a little bit left of my nori, why not just mix it with a little PVA, and then I've got a really amazing adhesive that allows me to move. The nori will allow me to move the paper without tearing it, and then the PVA will be a stronger bond. So I'm just going to mix it up, and it's going to be kind of a weird gooey mix, but I'm going to like this. I think it's just a nice way to do this. I think why not try something different? But they're all intermixable. If you want to use even a gel medium, you could do that. But now I've got some of this nori and I'm going to go ahead and start laying down paper. And I just brush on a light coat of the adhesive, my little adhesive blend. And I want to cover all the paper, all of it. So, you keep it thin because if you go really thick, then what happens is it gets more wrinkly and buckly. And I try to avoid that if I can. And I'm just going to lay down and I'm going to go off the edges of the paper because in fact, I love doing that, going off the edges, because I can always trim that. And I just do that. And I'm going to take this. This is another thing that you guys, Opus has. It's our Baron or Baden, pronounced properly. It's great for smoothing paper, especially the washi paper. Smooths it, pushes the glue out, and it doesn't tear the paper. So that's why it's just fantastic for printmaking and collage. Now I'm just going to stick another piece of paper, but I'm going to leave a little bit of this border See this torn? I like the torn edge thing going on. I think that's kind of fun. This is the momigami. So I'm going to put a little glue on that, and I'm just going to brush it on. If, I probably will switch to a glue stick shortly because I don't want to, it takes a little longer to do this with the brush. But I wanted to tell you there are options. If you have a glue stick, certainly use that. Use what you have. But I just kind of want to let you know that how versatile this is. I'm going to do a little, I just think that torn edge looks really kind of cool right there. And then I have a little edge here. And I'm just going to take more paper and just start. I have to look for high contrast, or you're kind of looking for different things. This one I'm just going to tear by hand, and I'm going to just take that edge and put it right there. This time I'm going to use a glue stick because I'm going to get super gluey and everything's going to get really messy. But I want to cover this in a really short period of time for you. So what happens is if the glue does get stuck to the surface, don't worry about it. Just kind of move it around. And I'm going to just stick a little glue stick on this. And I'm just going to lay the paper down. And I could do like crazy quilt stuff, or I'm just going to lay it right there. Actually, I don't know why I'm so attracted to this little torn edge. And then I'm just going to keep going. I'm just kind of fill it in here. I'm going to take another piece that isn't, I'm just going to put it on there. And it doesn't matter if I get glue on the top of this. I'm just going to do this quickly so I can cover the whole thing. And let's see, that's a torn edge. So I think I'll use that and put it on and really just you just cover it. And without really, there's not a lot of, like, I'm not trying to deal with composition right now because this is just the first layer. But I'm taking all my precious papers and I'm putting them in this little collage. And I'm leaving that blue border on some of the areas. See how it just kind of leaves that. And I the only way I think when I do these collages is I like to, if I have one piece of paper, I like to put it in two other places. So I've got this little piece, I'll go ahead and kind of like this edge. I'm going to just take this edge off and I'm going to glue, just taking my little glue stick. I'm going to put it right there, and it's going to be a repeat of that paper that's up there. And then I've got this third piece, and I'm going to grab, maybe put that, I'll decide that later. I'm going to grab another piece of paper. This is one piece, and I'll take this one, and I'm going to move it right there. So, oops, I'll use the torn edge here. So right now I've got glue on my underpaper, but when that dries, I can still use that underpaper and paint on it. So it's not a waste. I can still use it. As long as I don't tear it, which I could. It's possible. So I've got this stuff going on. I'm going to trim off some of that. I'm going to grab a little bit of this paper because I need to keep, oh, don't worry about it. This is the process that's chaotic. And doesn't seem like it's making any sense, but it will as I keep going. This one I like. I'll go ahead and just put that down. And I'm keeping an eye on time. Let me know if I'm doing okay on time. And I need a little piece right in the middle. And I think I'm going to do this one here. I'm just going to go ahead and tear this a little bit so I can have some of that blue paint underneath. Just going to tear that off like a little. And I'm going to put that right there because I like that. Okay. And that's like the first layer. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to trim it with my scissors. I'm just going to do that, and there, got it like that. So now I've got this thing going on, and I'm going to take my Baron and smooth it out so there's no loose edges. And I'm just going to take this and close that up. And now I'm going to just lift it up. And here's the thing. I just take it and I'm going to trim off these little wonky edges, and I've got glue on the back. Oh, well. But that's not I'm not going to be creating on that. So I'll just take this and trim. And then what I can do is save those little scraps if I want, or I can toss them if I don't really have any attachment. But boy, I do have an attachment because I love all the little bits and pieces. So there it is. And the blue series, right? First layer. So that's how I do that. And then what I'll do after that, once I get this cut, is Paper cutter would be good too. If I'd let it dry, I can just use a paper cutter, but since I'm doing this live with you, I wanted to do it in real time. Here we are. So I've got a beautiful little piece. Now, I think that's a gorgeous little piece, 5x7. It looks better after I've trimmed it. And now I can add some elements, like another layer. And I love this blue underneath. I could put bits like some of these over it, or some of my, let me show you this one. Some of these. I've even got some bigger ones here. I think that's dry enough. But if I wanted to do these, I could actually take this. This is where you take the gel medium. You're going to need gel medium when you do this. You can take bits and pieces of little doodles, and you can place them in wherever you want. Let's say, I don't know where to put that. I'm going to put that right there. And I'm going to take some gel medium. This is matte medium. I love the matte medium because I'm going to grab a paper towel with it. Matte medium is great because it doesn't leave a shine. I'm just going to take that, and I'm going to use my little mixed media brush, and I'm going to put a little matte medium over that. Okay, so watch what happens. So I'm going to just put a little bit on to the surface, and I'm just going to lay it on, and I'm just going to kind of put it on and watch that edge disappear. I just love that. So what I just did, and notice, remember, that was Sumi ink. And you notice that the Sumi ink did not bleed. So you don't need to, worry about Sumi ink bleeding if you put it on the good washi paper. So I think I'll take another leaf because it's so pretty. I'm just going to take this one, maybe these two. Let's do these. And I really don't care as long as I don't cut the whole thing. I'm just trying to cut around it. And I can have a little border because it really virtually disappears. I'm going to put these. I think they would look really cool right there. So I'm just going to put my matte medium down, brush it on to the paper, and then right over right there. Why not? This is what's fun about this. It's just layers, layers and layers. There we go. So now that's on there. And I want to keep painting until that usogami disappears, because the matte medium absorbs or soaks into it and then it disappears. So there, I've got that. Now that is just an example of how you can use usogami. Okay. Now that's going to have to dry. Another thing I could do, which I think would be fun, is to paint while I'm here. I'm going to put a little silver, some of the ground on that, and I'll show you what I did with it in a moment here. So I'm going to be really just loose about this. You can paint it on, brush it on, but I'm just going to put some on. And it's it's titanium white, so that's going to give me some light areas. I'm just going to kind of brush it on in certain areas. See how it's very opaque. I'm not going to do the whole thing. It's kind of translucent, but there's little areas where I'm going to be able to draw with this. So you can make marks like this. You can make and just wherever you want. You can, and on the momigami paper, it gives texture. I can actually create a texture. I'm just painting, and I know this is like really not my normal. I'm just kind of going at it. I want you to know, just be free and loose and have fun with it. So I'm going to put a little more maybe on this side. And then when that dries, I can start making marks and layers with the silver point, or even if I wanted to do it with drawing like a pencil or crayon, it will work for that. So I'm just going to make these little places where I can do some silver point if I want or not, or I'm just creating light areas. So it's a great medium for that. And then
And
later,
Karen,
when it's all dry in 24 hours, is when I prefer to do it. That's when you would start to mark make on it. So this piece I would work on a little bit more with mark making and scribbling and maybe some things. And then what happens, I'll set that aside because I'm going to show you what I do. This is one I worked on yesterday or the day before, a pink theme instead of a blue theme. I did the same thing. I painted with silver. I actually did a black I painted the paper black, You can barely see the black underneath, but I painted the paper first with black, then I collaged with some pink tones, red tones, and then I did some silver point ground, and it's more clear. It will dry with it will be less opaque. I do believe it dries a little more translucent. And then I did some usagami with, this was an usagami that was stamped. Okay, so this is a, yeah, well, there, it's not stamped. That was a stencil. You can see a little remnant of it right here. I just laid those on. And
Is that,
then the very,
Karen?
oh,
Is
yes.
the same paper that you cut the leaves out with?
I'm
The
sorry, what was the question again?
on the last project you were working on, you cut out some leaves. What type of paper was that?
That was usagami.
Thank you.
These,
Yes.
yeah, that's usagami. It's one of like, it's just fantastic to make little drawings on and then just layer them. Or if you're not if you don't draw, you can stamp, stencil, and then it just disappears. The edges disappear. I think it's like cool. So that's what I did with this is usagami that I had stamped on. And then the very final thing is then I start, okay, I start making marks. And this, since I've already done some, I don't know if you can see it, but you can start like wherever the silver point ground is, you don't even have to worry about it because wherever the silver point ground is not, it's not going to make marks. It will only make marks wherever you have the silver point ground. So you can just start kind of playing and you can make marks. Like in this one, I made marks. Ooh, and I love it. As the more layers you put on, the more silver shows up. And it's not really dramatically dark, but what it does, and can help you see that, it just creates this shimmer on the areas where the silver point ground is. And it creates like a gray, like a graphite. Looks sort of like a soft pencil mark, but you're getting these really cool, and there's no silver point ground there. I'm just trying to find the silver point ground so you can see. But I just start marking and kind of scratching into the shapes that are underneath. Like kind of like, ooh, that looks good. You see there's a little bit there. You can just kind of play and just color, kind of create marks, if that makes sense. You can see I did that with these. So basically, after I've done this layer, I'm going to cut that into quarters. Boom, boom. And I would like to do that. Of course, I said I couldn't find my paper cutter. I do have a big, huge guillotine cutter and I can't bring it over. But I'll cut this down. This is a 5x7 watercolor paper that we carry, Yasutomo carry. So if you have questions, it's this pad of paper, and then you can use any hot press mixed media paper or anything like that. But I like this because it's 5x7, and when you cut it down, it cuts into perfect quarters. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You get perfect sizes for your artist trading cards, which I think is great. So what I do is when I am to that project, so I've got this, I've got a few of these, and let's say these are little mother sheets, we'll call, and I'll just wait for this to dry, cut it into quarters, or no, I'll do some mark making first with the silver point, and maybe with these little pens. I like to use the Posca, not Posca, the One for All. I prefer this one because it doesn't bleed to make marks on. So, you can just kind of make little marks over that. You can just start layering and keep playing with making marks as much as you want to, or as little as you want to. Then I cut them up into quarters, and then the final bit, because once they're done, you've got these little pieces of art, right? But I finally do the last thing I do is I make a focal point. Now, this is where, if you've seen me work before, and I know I have a piece, my work before, there it is, I found it. A lot of times I practice watercolor leaves or other shapes on just watercolor paper using transparent watercolors. So any brand, I do leaves and then I start doodling over them. And then the last step is I cut them out. We call that fussy cutting. I cut them out and I save them. I put them in little piles like that. And then I just kind of look at, okay, so I already glued these on, but I just start looking for something that works, like I look for something that will work for that composition. And if I'm doing it on a larger piece, let's say a postcard size or something a little bigger, I start to find pieces and things that will work on that. You know, just little bits, could be little just shapes like watercolor circles. Little, I love that color with that. That's so pretty. So this is kind of how the components, all the chaos kind of comes together, is you've got practices and things you've done, you cut them out, you save them. You've got your all your washi papers, you save those, and then you kind of bring them together. And these are not quite finished yet because I was going to do one more little thing on them before I close, because I want you to see the very final thing. I'm going to do some words. So I actually cut these words out. I stamped them first, and I'm just going to cut them out with my scissors. And I'm going to find a place for each one, right? So like there's hope, peace. I might have to do smaller words. I'm going to have to just grab. These are stamped. You can handwrite them too. But what I like about doing it this is you can place words on your artwork without being afraid of messing it up, because you can place them and you can move it around and kind of stage them, if I will. That's kind of the word I'm looking for, right? You just look for a place that you want to put it. And I see a spot for the piece. And I will glue them all on, and then my pieces are finished. My little cards are finished. And the only thing I'm going to need to do after that is I'm going to put them on, make a artist trading card thing on the back. But these are like a series. So you can make a series of cards, artist trading cards, or any kind. So imagine, I wonder if I can use that word, imagine. Let's see if I can get that word on there. If not, I'll have to duplicate the shorter word. Or I can put it, this is what's great. You can sort of arrange your words and see where they'll fit on your cards. You can do this for greeting cards. I don't know. I think I'm going to do another word, and it's going to be my favorite word of all time. This one. And just I'll find it. I'll just put it on there because just that longer word isn't going to fit on there. So there it is. Love, right? We want that. We want lots of that. So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to put this one around here, kind of arranging it sort of where I want it. And then I'm going to use the matte medium because it's just handy. And the actual paper disappears in the matte with the matte medium. It doesn't disappear as much. So you can control the amount of matte translucency. If you were to use nori paste, it will be more, that paper will show more. So if you want it to be transparent, you would use the matte medium. So I'm just going to do this. I'll put a little, decided, where do I want this? The final touch. And I'm just going to put it, if I need to trim off this little bit, let me just trim off this tiny little bit because it's just needs to get out of the way. And I'm going to probably trim off a little bit more. There. And then I'm going to find a home for that. It's going to be right there. So I'm just going to put a little matte medium right on my painting or on my little card, and I'm going to put it on. I'm just going to place it. And what I like about doing this, you can kind of, oh, it's on there. I couldn't rearrange it. It's not moving. So there it is. But that looks like it was stamped on there. I just think that is just so fun. So there it is. That is finished. I'll have one more thing. I'll finish that, but one slight little other thing. But this one I'm going to put on, but I'll try to sort of put it on with a little thicker medium. Maybe I'll be able to reposition it. And once you put it on, maybe if I had tweezers instead of my chubby fingers, it would probably work better, but it's okay. So there it is. It just disappeared right on there. And last, I'll just do this one. Trim that. And these didn't take long. This little series of cards did not take long. I mean, you can see within, if I did a whole series over and over, like a larger, the mother sheet didn't take long, then the doodling and all this, but it's a process that you can do over a series periods of, you don't have to do it all at once, just kind of do it in little bits and pieces, and you'll have sessions where you can kind of finish things, but still have the experience. I'm going to put this one right there, and then we are finished. And that will dry, and it won't even show. It's a matte medium, so There we go. So that is the artist trading cards that I made out of the collages. All of this is washi paper of the stuff that I showed you. There's one little last thing I usually do is I kind of do a little to finish the edges a little bit. I'll show you because it's so tricky. I have to tell you. It's too easy. Yeah, just take a little stamp pad and a little foam. Most hopefully some of you have that. If you're mixed media people, you'll have it. And I just take this and I just very gently, when I'm done, I just kind of edge it. So that kind of finishes it off, makes it look like I'm done. And that really changes it. You know, it actually just kind of, what do you call it? Harmonizes it or unifies it. That's it. It unifies the whole piece. These are little, yeah, see how different that looks when it's finished with a little border? And that's it. So let me know if you have any questions. I think I've kind of ran through the time pretty much, and I'm here for some time to answer any questions, or if you have any requests on any of the stuff I've showed you or any questions.
And what are you using right now? It looks like a stamp pad and
Right, so I'm going to show you this. It's an archival ink. It's a waterproof, permanent. So I don't use dye-based inks because they smear, they bleed, but pigmented ink. So if you have a pigmented ink pad, which could be this brand or anything that's pigmented or permanent, that's what I use. If you don't have a stamp pad, and this is just a foam little tricky little thing, but you can just use a makeup sponge. Those really fine celled makeup sponges will work just fine. Another thing you can do if you wanted to do something like this and you don't have the stamp pad, you could take a brush, let's say some acrylic paint, put it in just take your sponge and dab very gently, like dry brush it. Like, so if your ink is here, you would just do a little dry tap, tap, tap on the sides. You could do it that way too. So I'm showing you the stamp pad because it's just easy to do, but you can also do it with an acrylic paint or something that's permanent and waterproof because you don't want it smearing your artwork later on. Any more questions?
yeah, there's a request if you could please show the Shikishi board.
Oh, yes. Okay, so Shikishi, I'm so glad you brought that up because I kind of forgot. I mean, I set it aside and I didn't do anything. There it is. I'm gonna put these aside. You're done. Now Shikishi board. Back to that, and this is fabulous stuff to work on. I'm gonna show you. I like these little the little 3-inch squares. I think I have one open. There it is. This pack comes with the same, you get 5 pieces of the same kind of paper, the Gossamer paper. So it's kind of this little textured, it's this stuff with a little texture on it. And it's great for painting on. So if you want to just ink paint on it directly, I'm going to show you that you can do that. And I'm going to show you, you can also collage. But the ink painting is fun. It's very spontaneous. I'm gonna grab my ink and I'm gonna do like a little origami, which is fun. But you can just do a whole, since I'm on a leaf kick, I'll do a leaf. Why not, right? So if you're gonna just paint on it directly, you can. So you can make, any kind of painting. I'm going to also show it, the watercolor with it too. But if you want to paint, let's say origami would be like it's called picture writing, and you just kind of hold the brush up in your hand, and I'm going to just do a little, ooh, very wonky leaf. It's very wonky. There, that's it. And then it's so simple. Then you take your lettering. If you want a letter, I'm going to put, this one is going to say, here, I'll just put that there. This one's going to say joy. So you just make a word and you can do it with your own hand lettering or you could stamp it, I suppose. But that is kind of the basis of that. And then what you do is if you want to paint, let's say you want to use some Ganzai watercolors, or you can just use your transparent watercolors. I'll use some Ganzai. This is a Japanese watercolor we carry, or we're actually going to bringing these in. But any of the Kuretake Ganzai, Tambi, these or Yasutomo or watercolors. Just any gum arabic based watercolor. But I'm just going to show you a little quick demo, and I'm going to have to use this brush. It's a CC brush. and I'm hoping not to mix it with my inks. So here I'm going to take the green. I think that's a green. Yep, that's a green. And you can see I'm just painting on my underpaper, and I'm doing that on purpose because I want to use that for later. So I'm just going to figure out, I'm just going to do a little quick, really spontaneous kind of, it's different. It takes the paint differently than watercolor paper. It's not going to be like traditional watercolor paper. I'm just going to put a little spots of color in here. And that's about all I might do. Maybe a little gold. Let's try a little gold. Just stick a little spots of color. Whoop, that didn't dissolve. But then I'm just going to let that dry. And that's what the Shikishi is really meant for, is just some spontaneous ink painting, lettering. They use it for autographs. It's like a little card you can give to somebody. You could get well or happy birthday. You can use it on the larger pieces. One thing you can do on it, so if it's scary to paint on it, that's okay. You can actually reuse this. A lot of times I'll do like a painting, a small painting. I know it's in my pile here somewhere. I'll just collage right on top if I have a piece that I'm not really happy with, but I like that one. I think that's fun. I'll keep that. But let's say there's another thing that's kind of cool with these. I'm going to just show you. You can paint the background. I'm going to do this gorgeous blue. You can actually paint the background but you have to be kind of careful when you're painting it because it is a very delicate surface. It's actually, it's washi paper. So just be careful not to scrub over it, but you can. And you notice I'm going off the side. I'm actually going to just show you some. I'm just going to do this because I want you to see that you can paint on it, directly on it. You can create like a background of color. And you notice that the gold, it's resisting the gold. So I just did a little abstract. Isn't that fun? I love that. And now I'm going to take a piece of paper towel, and while that's still wet, I'm just going to dab. I don't want to dab I'm just dabbing off the extra ink or the extra paint off of the edges. So there I got this gorgeous little isn't that pretty? I like that. And I could collage over that. I could just do a little focal point over that. One of these that I had in my little tray. When it's all said and done, I can do something like that. But just like that, I think that's pretty. I'll let that dry. And let me show you some other examples of things that I've done with it. So this one I sprayed with some spray ink, and then I wiped off the edges. So now I have a background that I can use for collage. And I'm going to show you, these are the different ones that I sprayed. Traditionally, since I'll show you, traditionally, this is what, you could use, just paint on it, do sumi painting. Like this is some bamboo I painted. And if I didn't really love the painting, I could use this again and paint and just do some collage over it. But this is just using ink, plain old sumi ink, which is what I showed you today. And this is using the Ganzai watercolors that I showed you here. This is just some flowers, loose little flowers using the watercolors. Simple, easy. This is the origami that I showed you a moment ago. This is this kind of style, and you really loose, you just put I put a teacup in front of me, and then I do very loosely. I didn't sketch it in, and it didn't matter how wonky it is. In fact, the more wonky it is, the better. So this is done with, now this one I think may be one that I mounted on later, and I'll explain that in a moment. What I did is I did the painting first on a small sheet, and then I glued it on with nori paste. And that's a good way you can do it if you're a little scared about painting directly on the piece. I've got a sample of it somewhere I'll show you. This one I painted directly on the piece. I did that at NAMTA, I think. Just a simple little brush, like an orchid, and then using a stamp to kind of finish it off. And this is one that I painted directly on. And it's just the same thing. The look of the origami, very bright colors. But first you do the drawing with the ink, then the colors after. Now this one is painted background, ink, and this was a collage, very similar to what I showed you a little while ago. I had hand brushed with the Usagami the word hello and put that on later. And this one is the same idea with the leaf that was put on after the fact. And this was just a little piece that I had collaged over that, over the painted substrate. Here's another one. So this is a little crazy quilt thing, but I did a collage and then glued it onto the Shikishi, which is such a neat way because you've got a frame, it's done. You can just stick it, wherever you've got a nice little frame, and you have a surface to work on the back if you want to. Here, which I'm just going to show you that. But this is a little collage I did during a Yasutomo demo. We just a little bits and pieces of like a little cutout from I think that's a Tim Holtz photo. He does these little cutouts that are really cool, and I had put some wings and put an origami heart, and then on the back I glued on this quote. And I put that, I just glued it on the back. So now I've got a fully immersive piece, which I really like doing. I like covering all pieces. I don't like a funny back on any of them. The piece I was going to show you was this is one I haven't mounted yet, but I'm going to. It's a little piece that I did. So I'm getting ready to mount it. I just haven't done it. So this is done on 6H paper, and I love it because it's a Bob Ross quote, and I love this one with the little brushes. You just basically take what's in front of you and try to paint or duplicate, not duplicate, but give the essence of it. Put a little color on it, not much. And then what I'm going to do is this is on the smooth side I painted. This is the rough side. So I'm going to, and I won't do it today because I don't have time to do it, but what I would do is I will put nori, I will brush on a good amount of nori paste on this and on the back only. So just nori paste with a sheep hair brush. Let that sit for a minute so the fibers can expand. And I usually trim it just a little bit smaller than the paper itself because I want that gold lining to show. So I'll put that, you get it wet with the glue, and then it's kind of wonky. It's a little bit weird after that. What you would do is then you would just find your corners, like, so you have a wet glued piece of paper, and you're gonna just find your corner, and then you're gonna take it, and you're gonna just let it drop, and then you're gonna use your baren to smooth out any wrinkles, because it will kind of want to wrinkle. So usually what I'd like to do is take a piece of like wax paper and put it like this, and then I would really take this and burnish it down with the baren. And then you have a piece that looks like you did it on the Shikishi, but you kind of, cheated a little bit. And that's okay, right? So there we go. I hope that gave you some inspiration for the Shikishi boards.
Absolutely. And you answered the mounting question, which is really helpful for all of us. There's a couple more questions here in the chat that, if you don't mind, it would be nice to
Sure.
have answered. There's some curiosity. A while back, you were painting on the back of your collage papers.
Yes.
And what paint were you using when
Okay,
painting?
yeah, for that one. Now I want the person that I was inspired by for that is Elizabeth St. Hilaire. She does these beautiful paintings with paper. Oh, it's gorgeous. If you don't know who she is, check her out because her work is incredible. I watched her do a little, I don't know where it was on Instagram or YouTube or something, but she uses primarily the 6H paper for her prints. And that's why I watched her because she uses a Yasutomo product. So I kind of watched that and I went nuts when I saw what she did with this. So what it is the gel print. So you do the gel print first, let it dry. And then you take your paper, turn it upside down. And I used an acrylic, thinned out acrylic for this one. So I used a sheep hair brush, like I'm going to show you the sheep hair brush. Because you want it to be a soft brush. You don't want it to be a brush that has heavy bristles. You want it to be, this is the BFC. I don't know if you carry these, but if you don't, you have something similar. It's just sheep hair, very soft. You want a soft brush. And what I do is I thinned out the acrylic and put it in a little bowl or a dish. And then I just gently from the center out I just brush it on. So I use a glass palette, by the way. I put it on glass or plastic so I don't mess up the front. And then I just brush it on until it soaks through the other side. Because this paper, when I gel printed it, only was the white with that little bit of dark, that blue or that dark, almost black. And then I brush it and then it becomes colored on both sides. So let me show you another example. I know I got them here in my pile. Here's another one. My pile of paper. This one was just same thing, 6H paper. It was just black swirls with a stencil. And then I turned it up over, painted it with diluted, I think it was quinacridone magenta. Golden is the brand I usually use, but any acrylic paint will work. The same, this one I did, I actually, with this one, what did I do with this one? This one looks a little different. Oh, I know what I did. I did I just painted it with diluted pink and blue, and then I kind of went over it and spattered it with some silver because I see some silver here on the back. This one is a 6JM, so it's thinner, and that's a big pad. I wanted to see if it worked on that, and it did great. It seems like I have like the gold or the yellow. That's a quinacridone gold, I think, mixed with maybe some burnt orange. But you notice it's a subtle, much more subtle color on the front than the back. I thought that was interesting. And this one was painted with, it was a gel printed with gold, and then I just did some mixture of blues. And this one was gel printed in blues, and I did it with the yellow, diluted. But so you want your paint to be watered down so that it will soak in through the other side. And I hope that makes sense. And if you can find her, Elizabeth St. Hilaire, find her YouTube channel. She may have that up on her YouTube channel. And this is another one I really loved. So you can see the gel print, and then I just painted over it. And then when you let them dry, they're very delicate until they're dry. So just kind of let them sit and wait for them to dry. And this is like a double-sided. Another thing you can do with washi paper is you can fuse two sheets together to make a thicker sheet. Didn't mention this, but this is two thinner sheets, 6 jams, and I fused them with the nori paste. Basically brushed it on, thinned nori paste, brushed it on the back, put them together, and I got one sheet that's double-sided and it's fused, and I can use that for any project. I love that. So I hope that helped.
Yes, very inspiring and fun technique. Thanks for sharing that with us. And
Thank you.
there's one more question
Yep.
before we head off in all of our own directions, and it's about the letter stamping. Could you remind us which paper you stamped the
I
letter?
used Usagami, and I'm going to show you the package because this is the paper I used. It is translucent, so you've got this, it's like a tissue paper, and you can print on it with a laser for sure. And I have to tell you the trick about that. I forgot to tell you. If you're going to use a printer, and you want to print a sheet, so like your own artwork, or you have somebody else's artwork, like this one here is my own. That's actually my own artwork that I had scanned and then I printed it. So, but you can use it in your printer, and if you want to use it as a stamp, to stamp on, all you have to do is you take. Let me get one sheet out. Gotta get that one sheet out. So thin. It's very strong though, so it takes, it's a wet strength paper. I'm gonna grab a stamp, which I have to show you because it's a cute little stamp. I'm just gonna grab it out of my little stash. There it is. So cute. I've got this little bird that I made out of eraser. It's an eraser stamp. Usually when I stamp though, I'm gonna tell you a little trick. If you're stamping and you want to have like a really good impression, you should always stamp, if you can, over some like a pad of like a newsprint or something like that, because you need a pad underneath to get a really good impression. Just wanted to mention that. Now here I'm just going to show you just this little cute bird, and I'm going to stamp him. And you know what I like about this, because the ink shows on both sides, what you can do is you can make this a reversible focal point. You can actually turn it over and you won't know which is the front or the back. And I like that. So I'm just going to make sure I generously ink it. And if you had letter stamps, you would do the same thing. You just generously ink it with your archival ink or your permanent ink, and then you're going to stamp and basically just take it and press down and then lift, give it a nice, make sure you got a good coverage. And there I've got this really cute little bird. I love that little guy. And then I'm going to show you on the other side what it looks like. So you can see when I do the collage, that's going to look like it's going to disappear. The edges will disappear, and that black will be just as strong as this side. So that's what I like about working with Usagami. Plus, if you are a stamper, like to stamp, and you're afraid to stamp on something like this piece here. If I'd stamped on it and it made a mistake, then I would ruin the whole piece. But because I do it on the Usagami, I'm able to position it, kind of stage it and then glue it on, and no one knows that I didn't stamp that. There's no evidence of paper on there at all. So that's why I love that so much. Does that help with that one?
Yes, that does very much so. And then Tim
Great.
jumped in with this final question about when you cut out your stamps, what tools do you use?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
When you cut out your stamps from the eraser, what kind of tools do you
Oh, I
use?
use just the those little tools.
I know cutter
Speedball, the
tools.
speedball,
Yeah.
the little carving tools, nothing special. Just I use those, or you can just use, some people just use an X-Acto knife and cut with that. And the material is really soft. You can use erasers, like a polymer eraser, and you can make little stamps. I've kind of got a whole thing on stamp carving. We're gonna be doing a kit on making your own hanko, your own signature stamp, which is really fun.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to have you back.
Well, I'd love to come back, so
Thanks.
sign me up.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun today to watch your process, watch you in action, learn about all the different materials. I'm so grateful you could join us. And Phoebe, so grateful you could join us as well. You're amazing in the chat. You brought us so much information about the different products. I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it without you today. So I'm so thankful and grateful to both of you. And for everyone coming today, it's absolutely a delight to be here with all of you. And I love how you're all still here. We've run 15 minutes over and everyone's still
And
engaged.
we
It's
didn't lose them. Thank you for
no,
sticking around.
yeah, have a creative day and do keep your eye out for that follow-up email with all of the material links, and be sure to check out Yasutomo's YouTube channel if you'd like to see the demo again. So lovely day to all of you.
Thank you.